Hi and welcome to today's video. In today's video, we'll have a look at another sample IELTS speaking interview. Today's interview is that of Ishika Geharwal. Ishika scored a 7.5 in the real test. So let's see how she performs today. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm fine. Thank you.
And may I have a look at your identification, please?
Sure, sir. Here it is. There you go.
Right, everything seems to be in order.
Thank you, sir.
Are you ready, Ishika? Should we start?
Yes, I'm ready.
Right. First, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions on topics that you are familiar with.
Certainly.
We'll start by talking about television. How often do you watch television?
I love to watch television. I'm very fond of watching television. So I watch it on my free time when I finish all my work.
Right. And what are your favorite programs on the television and why do you like these programs so much?
Okay, so one of my favorite programs which I watch on daily basis is the Kapil Sharma Show. It's a very prominent comedy program which I'm sure everybody is aware of. So I watch it on daily basis, even if the recorded version I watch it because I love it.
Right. What kind of programs would you like to see more of on television?
Other than this, I love to watch cookery programs because I love to cook. So one of those I would like to watch.
Right. Let's talk about your home. Tell me a little bit about your home.
So I live in an apartment. It's a 2 BHK apartment. I live on the first floor. It has two rooms, one big living room and a kitchen and two bathrooms with four balconies.
Right. Very interesting. So, what is the favorite part of your home?
The favorite part where I like to spend most of my time is in my living room. It's my favorite because we spend most of our time sitting there and watching TV with my family. So that's the favorite part.
Right. If there were one thing that you could improve about your home, what would this one thing be and why?
Okay, so I anyway like all the parts of my room or house, but one thing I would like to change is my balcony, the view of course, because I get a parking lot view. So right in front of my balcony there is my car parking. So I would like to change it. Maybe we can change it to a higher floor or something with a garden view. That I would like to change in future.
Right. Let's talk about cooking. Do you like cooking and how often do you cook?
I love to cook and I cook almost every day with my mother.
Right. What kind of cooking do you usually do?
I like to cook North Indian generally, but I try different cuisines also. But the first thing I would like to cook every day, which I do, is North Indian cooking.
Right. Do you like cooking for others? What do you like about cooking for others?
So of course I love to cook because it's my family. I live with them, so when I prepare meals, so it's for the entire family, and I love to cook for them because when you cook something and people appreciate your cooking, it's a very nice feeling. So I love to cook for others, be it my friends, family, or anybody, any guests. I love to cook for everybody.
Right. That is the end of part one. We will now go to part two. In part two, I will give you a card. The card has a topic and several cues on it. You have 1 minute to prepare. While you are preparing, you may take notes.
Sure, sir.
After 1 minute, you'll be required to speak for up to 2 minutes on the topic given on your card. And this is your card. You may start now.
So the piece of advice which I recently got was from my parents. So the advice was spend money wisely. And this came from when I came back home after my 2 years of job and I hardly had any savings because it was it was my first job, so I didn't was that much bothered to save money. I didn't have that much knowledge how important it is. So when I came back home, my parents asked me what was your expenditure and everything. Then we sat and we talked about it, and then I realized that I didn't do any savings. So that's when my parents gave me this advice that you should manage your expenses. You should know where to spend. You should be wise enough to keep your money on the appropriate places. So that's what the advice was. And I mean, so far I understand how important it is for you to, save money, because for the situation which may occur in future, and it is sometimes a difficult time for you, and those savings can be a very useful asset for you to spend at that particular time. So now I'm realizing that already, now that I'm planning to go abroad, I can see how expenses are, and it is very important for one individual to, save money, balance their expenditure, and along with it, it's not like you have to bound yourself and, kill your things which you wanted to do, but at the same time you should know that I want to do this, at the same time I need to save money, then again I can, go for my other miscellaneous expenses also. But you should be properly aware that how much amount needs to be spent at what place, and at the end of the day you have something at your bank account also which is as a saving for you. So that is very important. And when my parents told me, I thought it's too late, but then they told me that it's never late, you can start it again, you can save money which is useful for you, important for you. So that's when I realized that yes, spending money wisely is something you should always look after. And at a very early age I started working, and that was the mistake I did at my period of working, that I should have not done it. But then I realized, I talked with my parents, and I think it's very useful for me. And now that I realize, I have a mindset that how I need to plan things now for future, and how I need to balance things accordingly. So it's very important, and I'll make sure that I'll save money whenever I'll come back after my studies. I will do some savings, I'll make a better future for myself. So this is something which is very, very, very important for everybody.
Right. So tell me, how important is it to consider the source of a piece of advice when you decide to follow it or not?
I think firstly, it is very important, and it depends on the kind of advice you're taking from somebody. And then if you think that you are confused about something, the advice can be helpful for you. If it is helpful, you can follow it. And if you think that you have some better option than that advice, you can go for that as well. It completely depends on the type of advice and the person you're seeking that advice from.
Right. How can advice from people of different generations differ? Should you take these differences into account?
I think yes, because advice and mindsets depends on generation gap. Like sometimes I can think something on a positive way about something, and my parents can take it as a negative way, because there is a generation gap. So it definitely depends on generation and the type of advice you're seeking. It can be a positive advice for you, and at the same time it can be a negative advice. So yes, it completely depends on generation. I agree with it.
So do you think people trust advice from experts or close friends, and why?
I think yes, people do seek advice from people who are experienced, experts, or who are close friends, because if you find yourself in a situation where you don't think that you have that idea, you seek for advice, and you always go to a person who's highly experienced or who has gone through that certain situation, or you have that thing in mind that I'll go to this person and this person will definitely help me because he has that much knowledge. So yes, of course, people generally go, a lot of people go, I myself go to my parents, sometimes my friends, when I find myself in something where I know that other person can help me better in this.
Right. How can cultural backgrounds influence the kind of advice that you receive or give?
I think yes, because it depends on the pattern in which the people are born and brought up. Like culture is a major part, and it plays a very major role in this. Why? Because sometimes people in such a the upbringing is done in such a way that they have this mindset of certain cultural thing that this needs to be done, and at the same time if you give that advice to other person, that person may not find that advice relevant for him because he thinks that this can be done openly. So it again depends on cultural and the type of environment you are surrounded with, and if you're seeking that advice from somebody, it may be riskier for you sometimes.
Right. If you seek advice from many different people, will this end up confusing you, or will it be helpful, and why?
I will go with both the situations. Why? Because sometimes if you go to so many people for the same thing, you will definitely get confused. because somebody will give you a positive thing of that advice, somebody will give you a negative advice, and it ends up with a very big confusion. And if you're going to ask something which you want to know about more about, like information more about, then I think the more you'll go to people, the more you ask, the more better it is for you. So it depends on both situations.
Right. In what kind of situation would it be better to depend on your own judgment rather than the advice of others?
Okay, so this question is very sensitive question. I think when it is something very deep and personal for yourself, then I think you should take your call and not what people are thinking or telling you to do. Because sometimes when there is a situation you're stuck, that I this is something very personal. First of all, it is very difficult for you to go and open up to somebody, and then if you will go and tell it to somebody and you find that no, this is what was not what I planned, and then you got something opposite of it, then sometimes you need to sit back and listen to your own self, that okay, I took everybody's advice, but this is something which I need to go for with my own brain. So yes, it can be a very personal advice, something related to your personal stuff. Yes.
That is the end of the speaking test. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Overall, I thought that Ishika did not do justice to herself in part 1 of the speaking test because some of her answers were too brief. What kind of programs would you like to see more of on television?
Other than this, I love to watch cookery programs because I love to cook. So one of those I would like to watch.
This did not allow her to demonstrate a full range of skills in part 1 of the speaking test. However, in part 2 of the speaking test, Ishika did much better. She spoke for the full 2 minutes and was articulate and well organized in response to the cue card. At the beginning of part 2, she introduced the piece of advice she had been given, gave us a little background on the circumstances in which she got this piece of advice, and identified who had given her that piece of advice. Let's watch this part again.
So the piece of advice which I recently got was from my parents. So the advice was spend money wisely, and this came from when I came back home after my 2 years of job, and I hardly had any savings because it was it was my first job, so I didn't was that much bothered to save money. I didn't have that much knowledge how important it is. So when I came back home, my parents asked me what was your expenditure and everything. Then we sat and we talked about it, and then I realized that I didn't do any savings. So that's when my parents gave me this advice that you should manage your expenses, you should know where to spend, you should be wise enough to keep your money on the appropriate places. So that's what the advice was.
In part 3 of the speaking test, Ishika gave some extremely analytical answers that showed her reasoning skills and her command over the language. Now, let's talk about her score on all 4 band descriptors. First, let's talk about fluency and coherence. Ishika showed the ability to keep speaking without gaps.
I will go with both the situations. Why? Because sometimes if you go to so many people for the same thing, you will definitely get confused, because somebody will give you a positive thing of that advice, somebody will give you a negative advice, and it ends up with a very big confusion. And if you're going to ask something which you want to know about more about, like information more about, then I think the more you'll go to people, the more you ask, the more better it is for you. So
She spoke at a constant rate. Her answers were well organized and she used many transitions. However, there were a few self corrections.
I am very fond of watching television.
Next, let's talk about lexical resource. Ishika's choice of words resulted in clear communication during most of the interview, and she used all word forms correctly with good collocation.
So I live in an apartment. It's a 2 BHK apartment. I live on the first floor. It has 2 rooms, 1 big living room and a kitchen and 2 bathrooms with 4 balconies.
However, She also used very little advanced vocabulary and idiomatic language. So, Ishika's score in lexical resource was a 6.5. In the third band descriptor, grammatical range and accuracy, Ishika used a variety of structures such as simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences.
I think firstly it is very important and it depends on the kind of advice you're taking from somebody. And then if you think that you are confused about something, the advice can be helpful for you. If it is helpful, you can follow it. And if you think that you have some better option than that advice, you can go for that as well. It completely depends on the type of advice and the person you're seeking that advice from.
Most of the time, her grammar was correct with a few minor errors. So, I gave her a 7.0 in grammatical range and accuracy. In the last band descriptor, pronunciation, I gave Ishika a 7.0 because I did not have to strain at all to understand what she was saying. She pronounced all sounds clearly and correctly. She also stressed important words while speaking too.
So the piece of advice which I recently got was from my parents. So the advice was spend money wisely.
And her intonation kept me interested in the interaction. Overall, Ishika's score is 7.0. Thanks for watching today's video. Don't forget to subscribe for more speaking videos and videos about studying abroad. Register on our website www.studyinterface.io for a free demo class for IELTS and PTE and also a free counseling session on studying abroad.